What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, Under Center with Abelson, presented by the Real Spiel Podcast. Week 6 is officially underway. We are just flying through the season. You're going to blink your eyes, and next thing you know, it's going to be championship weekend. But we're here to try and slow things down, talk about week 6. Week 5 is in the books and was absolutely killer. We had Oregon go into Penn State, taking them out in overtime at the whiteout. We had Georgia and Alabama. Hey, Alabama owns Kirby Smart. What else did we have? We had Florida State going down. We had uh, Iowa and Indiana in an Iowa type game. Yeah, week 5 lived up to all of the hype and all of the glory. We are on to a new week. A new week brings us new matchups, new storylines, new pretenders and contenders. So yeah, we got a lot of big games to get into this week. There's no such thing as a bad weekend in college football. Before we get into everything though, like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend, because we are starting to get into the nitty gritty of the season, man. So let's get into it. There may not be as many high caliber, high top ranked matchups as there was last week, but there are still a lot of incredible games, a lot of ranked matchups. The one that we'll start with that I personally am most excited to watch is Florida State and Miami. Miami travels to Tallahassee in its first road game of the season, and surprisingly, they only leave Miami one time until they don't leave Miami at all, actually, until November 1st. It's kind of weird the way their schedule lined up. But yeah, Florida State and Miami. Florida State looking to bounce back after that loss on the road to Virginia. That was, as trap game could be. You got Miami coming into town. You got Virginia on the road. Virginia has a pretty solid team this year too. They're 4-1 now, and that place was on fire. And you just got caught slipping, man. That's one of those games where if Florida State wants to get back to that magical year they had, that's one of those games you just cannot get caught slipping on. But Miami rolling, undefeated. They've been, in my opinion, one of the best teams in the country, if not the best. I think it's very close between Ohio State, Oregon, and Miami. But I do think all those three teams have separated from the rest of the field. I think the biggest keys and storylines to this game is Miami's rush defense versus Florida State's running offense. Florida State is the number 2 rushing offense in the country. They're averaging 6.5 yards per carry, going up against what is, I think, in my opinion, the best defensive line in the country with Ruben Baines. I heard a crazy stat, I think on Josh Pate's podcast, that Miami I wrote it down, that Miami's defensive line has produced either zero yards rushing or negative yards on 23% of the runs that they're defending on. So 23% of the time the other team is running the ball, Miami is holding them to either 0 yards or negative yards, which is absolutely insane. Like I said, that defensive front has been insane. That pass rush has just been getting after people. It just feels like every time they need a big sack, they get it. That first game against Notre Dame, that last possession where Notre Dame was trying to go and tie the field with a field goal, it just felt like Ruben Bain just got unleashed and they were just getting after CJ Carr time and time again. But I think that's kind of where the game's going to be won and lost. Because especially with Thomas Castellano, it feels like that is the way Florida State has to play. They have to be able to establish the run and run the ball, whether it's through quarterback designed runs, scrambling, and getting the running backs involved. I think that's what will open up the pass game for Thomas Castellano. I don't think you can really, especially against this Miami defense, expect him to just drop back, 30 times, 35 times, and just ask him to beat you with his arms, because that's not the type of, player he is. He's a player who uses his legs and uses his legs to his advantage. And I'm going to be interested to see if Florida State's defensive line can push Miami's offensive line around like they did Alabama. That was where I was the most surprised versus the Alabama game. Is Florida State just made light work of Alabama's offensive line. They could not protect Ty Simpson whatsoever. He was running for his life, play after play after play. And I'm curious to see if they'll have that same effect with this offensive line of Miami. Miami, in my opinion, has one of the best offensive lines in the country. Mario Cristobal, he's an offensive line guy. The way they were just pushing Florida around and able to just, you know, push their defensive line around. And that's Florida. That's been their only saving grace this year is their defense. And Miami was really just having their way rushing the ball. And Miami's running backs are, you know, some running backs who it feels like as the game goes on, they just get stronger and stronger and stronger. And by the time the fourth quarter comes, when the defensive line is tired, it just feels like Miami's backs are getting started. So I definitely think, you know, it's so cliche to say, oh, the line of scrimmage is where games were won and lost, but like it really is, man. Like, what do they talk about all the time? Like the SEC line, they have an SEC line of scrimmage. That's was like the status quo, you know, of when teams are trying to compete. You want to try and get an SEC line because if you can have an offensive line and a defense that can protect the quarterback, that can move the defensive line and open up running lanes, and then you have a defensive line that can just get after the quarterback relentlessly. You're a tough team to beat, and I think that's why I think so highly of Miami this year is because they have elite levels of both, and it's been on full display. Right now, that line is sitting at Miami at -4.5. Vegas thinks this is going to be a close game. It really does, and I'm not too surprised by that, just because it is a road game. Florida State's coming off a loss. Florida State's been a high-powered offense all year. Um, I'm not mad at that line at all, but I I think so highly of Miami this year. In my last week's poll, I did have them as the number one team in the country. They're a top three team in the country without doubt. I do think with a veteran in Carson Beck, he hasn't really been needing to do much all year. The offense has worked in a way where he hasn't been asked to do much. The run game's been going on. They've been protecting him. He's just had to make timely throws. So I like this is not going to be a crazy. He's played in I think tougher environments than this. When at Georgia in the SEC environments, SEC championship games, he's played in bigger, more pressurized environments than he is going to be at Tallahassee. So I don't think the crowd is going to affect him as much. As long as he can play a clean game, not turn the ball over, and not give that crowd life, I think Miami will be okay. I trust their line of scrimmage. I trust their running games, and I trust they have a veteran quarterback who, will keep them poised. So I'm taking Miami -4.5 on the road. I think the U gets it done. Next game we got is Alabama versus Vandy. Obviously, we know what happened last year with this game. Vandy absolutely shocking Alabama. I think they were the number one team in the country at the time. Just dominating the game basically from start to finish. I know the game ended up 35-40 or something, but that score was not as close as it seemed. Vandy was really just dominating that game, pushing Alabama around. Alabama could not get them off the field on third down. That's what really killed them. Every single third down, it felt like Vandy just got the first down. But that was last year. This is this year. This game is going to be at Alabama. But Vandy is a better team this year than last year, which is, crazy to think about. They beat Alabama last year, and they have, in my opinion, a way better team this year than they did last year. Alabama coming off that big win against Georgia. Some people I felt, wrote Alabama off after that first game against Florida State, but they seem to have bounced back. I've talked about this, a couple times. Alabama, when they can protect Ty Simpson, that's the key. That is literally their key. If they can protect Ty Simpson, he is an absolute surgeon, man. I think he leads the country of the SEC in completion percentage at 78%. The game against Georgia, he went 13 for 19 on third downs. That that was impressive, man. That was one of the most impressive things I saw last week. 13 for 19 on third downs is absolutely ridiculous. I don't care who you are, and doing that against Georgia and that Kirby Smart defense on the road. But yeah, like he's I think playing like a top three quarterback in the country right now. And that's literally the key. If they can just keep him clean, they have the talent around him. The running game is not doing as well as you'd like them to be. They got Jam Miller back though, so this is his second game back. So hopefully they can start to establish the run a little bit, and I think that will help out. Vandy on the other hand, man, they've been playing well, man. They just absolutely trounced South Carolina. Um, Diego Pavia, he hasn't really been. Again, he's one of those quarterbacks. He hasn't really needed to do too much, at least through the air. Vandy's defense has just been playing incredible all year. He's made timely throws. He's made throws that needed to be made, but he hasn't been asked to do too much through the air. But he's obviously, a dual threat guy who can do it with his arms and his legs. He did have 5 touchdowns against Utah State. Obviously, that's not really, a major team you have to worry about. But their offense has just been humming this year. They scored 70 points against Georgia State, who's a team that beat them last year. They beat Vandy 31-7. They put up 44 against Virginia Tech. They put up 30 or more points in every single game this year. So this is going to be a different test, though. This is going to be a much different test with Alabama's defense on the road. We're going to see, how well they do. But this line right now is sitting at 10.5. That's a I don't know. That's tough, man. Because on one hand, I think Alabama is finally starting to click and come into their own, and is starting to look like one of the best teams in the country. But on the other, Vandy is just such a tough team this year, man. Like I think they could be underranked. They're ranked 16 right now. You could make a conversation for Vandy to be a top 14 team in the country, and I wouldn't be mad at it. But I'm gonna have to take Vandy to cover. 10.5 points is just a lot of points, especially with how well Vandy has been playing this year. Diego Pavia is an absolute dog. He was talking cash all off season. I think people looked at him crazy when he was like, their goal this year is for Vandy to win the national champion. Like, people were looking at him crazy, and I know it's still early in the season. I know they haven't gotten to the meat of the SEC play, but they're 5-0. He's looking good. The team's looking good. The defense is looking good. Like, I think, that's not far fetched. But I do think Alabama's going to win this game. Like I said, I think that Florida State loss just unlocked a different mode with Alabama, and they've just been locked in. Ty Simpson is playing extremely well. So I do like Alabama to win, but I do like Vandy to cover. We're going to take the plus 10.5. Next up, we got Florida versus Texas. Texas going to the Swamp for the first time ever in their program. That's kind of crazy to think about. But this is a battle of the quarterbacks that have something to prove. Obviously, both of these quarterbacks were so hyped up coming into the season. Everybody had Arch Manning number one. If not number one, then in the top 5. I feel like everybody had DJ Lagway in their top 10 quarterbacks list. And obviously, both of these quarterbacks have been underwhelming to say the least. DJ Lagway more so, in my opinion, than Arch Manning. I think the hype around Arch Manning is what might make his situation look more underwhelming, but DJ Lagway has just been outright bad. Like, there's really no other way to put it. He's just been bad. I don't think he's had a single, because at least with Arch Manning, whether it's against good competition or not, we've seen him put it together. Against Sam Houston, he played extremely well. Who else did they play? They played UTEP. He looked, or San Jose State. He looked pretty good against San Jose State. So we've seen he has the ability. I don't care if it's a bad team to put it together. He seems to have been getting a little more comfortable, at least against Sam Houston. But DJ Lagway, we just haven't seen it whatsoever. Like I said in some previous episodes, he's just looked worse with every single week as the weeks have gone by. He's just looked worse and worse. And this Texas defense is for real, man. If there's one thing that they have is that defense. They held Ohio State to what 14 points in that opener. I don't care if Ohio State was being conservative. I don't care. I don't care what they're saying. Um, that's a tough defense to play against. You know, that's a tough defense, and I think Texas's defense, the way Florida's offense has been playing so far, I think their defense alone, I'm not gonna say could win them the game, but I do think their defense alone can, if it's if they have a 7 point, 14 point lead, I think their defense alone can, kind of keep that lead for them. Um, I don't Arch Manning. That's the thing about Arch Manning. He does not have to be this amazing all world player. Like Quinn Ewers, I will say though, in his defense, his team has not been stepping up as much as you would think they would be. Um, the running backs have, I think they're starting maybe a little banged up. The running backs really haven't been there. The receivers aren't making the plays you would think they would be in this Texas offense. So he does need his team around him to step up. But obviously, Arch Manning could be playing a lot better and should be playing a lot better. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's as simple as that. The quarterback, the team who gets the most production and better play from their quarterback, I think is going to be the team that wins. Because both of these defenses are solid. Florida's defense, like I said earlier, that's pretty much their only saving grace is their defense. And I haven't even seen DJ Lagway being close to popping this year. Like, not even close to finding it, Like I said earlier, at least with Arch Manning, he's had games where he's looked good and he's put it together. Um, I can't say the same for DJ Lagway, bro. Like, there's just has not been a single game where it's been like, oh, okay, there it is. Oh, that's the DJ Lagway we've been waiting for. And to think that it's just going to magically happen against Texas, top 10 defense in the country, I'm just not seeing it, man. I am just not seeing it. Um, I think this is a terrible spot for Texas. The spread is -6.5. I do like Texas to cover that. I almost convinced myself on Florida to cover. I think it was at like 7 or 8.5 at one point. I almost convinced myself, but there was no convincing. I'm going with Texas. I think Arch will play well enough to win. I think the defense is going to carry them. I think Texas is going to go into the swamp for the first time and get the victory. Next up, one of I think the most underrated games of the weekend, the game that I'll be at, obviously, Louisville and Virginia. Virginia travels to Louisville to face off in an ACC matchup. This is a sneaky game, man. This is a sneaky game. Virginia's ranked for the first time, 24. Louisville is on the fringes of getting ranked. This would be a big time win. I think they would be ranked if they did win this game. Obviously, Virginia looking to keep things rolling after that impressive win against Florida State. That was impressive, man. I know I said earlier that was a trap game, but that's just not really something that I necessarily saw coming. Obviously, I thought Virginia could keep it competitive, but I just really didn't see them going out and winning the game. But that was a great effort by Tony Bennett. I think no, not Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett was the basketball coach. Who's the coach for Virginia? I don't even know. Whatever his name is. He was on the hot seat coming into this year, man. He was on the hot seat. They really didn't perform as well as they wanted to last year. If they really had another disappointing year, there's chances that he could have been gone. But he has this team playing extremely well. They're 4-1. Who did their loss come to? They lost to NC State. That's right. I think they blew like a lead that game. They should have won that game. But yeah, they only lost to NC State and they beat Florida State. Louisville with a thriller last weekend, coming back 17 down against Pitt. The ball boy, spiking some energy into that team when they desperately needed it. There's this thing I do when Louisville gets down big early. I don't bet on Louisville. I refuse to. It's one of the weird superstitions that I have. I feel like every time I do, we end up losing or something. It's just weird superstition that I have. But every time we go down big early, for whatever reason, I've done it a couple times and it's all worked out. I hammer our money line, and I've been 3-0 this time. I've been 3-0. I did it last year when we went down against Boston College. I think we were down like 24-0 or something. I put like $20 on us to win. Like it was like plus 400 at the time. And we ended up coming back in the second half and winning. I did it against JMU earlier this year when we were down. I think we were down 14-0 or something at halftime. I got it at like plus 200 and won that one. And then I couldn't actually bet it because I was in California, and you can't gamble in California. But I would have bet it. I would have bet it for sure. We were down 17-0 in the first quarter against Pitt, and we came back and won the game. So I'm gonna count that though. So hopefully I don't have to do that this weekend. Louisville's just not playing as good as I would like them to. They have flashes. You know, the defense looks to be much improved from last year, but which is weird to say because, I mean, we've scored. I saw a stat. Louisville has scored the most consecutive 24-plus point games in the country. We've had 18 straight games scoring more than 24 points. But it's just been like a tough 24, man. A tough 24. And the one thing that I usually never have a question with is Jeff Brom and his offense. Whether it was Tyler Show last year, whether it was Jake Plummer the year before, or Jack Plummer the year before, the offense is always, that's just the one thing you know that's going to be there. And everything has just looked tough for us this year. Miller Moss has had, a slow start to say the least. I do like the way he ended up coming on strong in the second half of that Pitt game. But it's not even all on him. Our offensive line has just has not been good. The last couple of years, the offensive line has been a very underrated part of Louisville's offense. Whether it was Jawar Jordan 2 years ago, or whether it was Isaac Guerendo, or whether this year or last year Duke Watson and Isaac Brown, the offensive line has just been consistently able to get push, to get movement, and to open up these lanes for our running game. And Isaac Brown and Duke Watson, I know they're battling injuries, but they're not getting any push, man. Every time they get the ball handed off to them, it almost feels like the defense is already right there, and they're getting met behind the line of scrimmage. That's something that Louisville's going to have to fix pretty quickly. They play Miami in 2 weeks, and if they continue playing the way they've been playing, Miami, I think, is just going to absolutely roll all over them. But the spread on this one is -6.5. Again, I love Louisville. I'm a huge Louisville fan, but I don't consider myself to be a biased Louisville fan. I keep it real. I'm not, my team's going to beat every team in the, no. When I saw this line, -6.5, especially with the way we've been playing, I was a little surprised. But it does give me some optimism. The way we have been playing, in my opinion, it hasn't been great at all. We've shown some red flags, but we're still 4-0. I mean, I know the first 3 games were not even good teams, but we're still 4-0. We beat a good, solid Pitt team on the road, and I'm glad we have this game at home. But 6.5, the way Virginia's been playing, the way they played, if they continue to play like that against Florida, how they did against Florida State, 6.5 might be too many points, man. I think this is going to be a close game. I think Virginia's going to come play tough. I do think Louisville's going to win, but I think I'm going to be safe and take Virginia plus 6.5. I do think they can keep it close. I wouldn't be surprised if Louisville wins by more than 6.5 late. If they get maybe a couple late plays, a turnover or something that kind of flips the game late. But I do think Virginia can kind of hang around and keep it close. So I'm going to take Virginia plus 6.5, but I'm going to take Louisville to win. Next game we're going to hit on is Mississippi State and Texas A&M. The Aggies looking to keep things rolling after playing Auburn. Mississippi State losing in a heartbreaker, a game that felt like they should have won against Tennessee in overtime. They just didn't make enough plays. But nonetheless, I'm still extremely impressed with the way Mississippi State has been playing. This line is pretty interesting, man. Texas A&M is a minus 14 and a half favorite against Mississippi State. I don't know. I don't. Am I tripping? Is Texas A&M maybe being a little overhyped? Maybe just a tad bit. I don't know. Tell me if I'm tripping. Um, they're obviously. I've been impressed with the way they've been playing this year. I think Marcel Reed has taken another step, especially with his passing game. But the way they played against last week against Auburn was a little puzzling. I think the spread was 6.5, and they ended up winning by 6. But their offense just looked out of sorts, especially coming off that the last game they had a bye and then they had Notre Dame, or they had Notre Dame and then a bye. I was not seeing a lot of what I saw against Notre Dame during that Auburn game, and that's very for them to be minus 14 and a half is very, very puzzling to me. I think I'm gonna take Mississippi State on this one. I like the way they've been playing, man. They've just been Blake Shapen has just been a dog this year. This is not the same old Mississippi State. Clearly, that they were last year. They seem to be playing with so much energy, with so much effort. Like I said, Blake Shapen, he's been playing extremely well. The defense is playing good. The offense is much improved. I wouldn't be surprised though if Texas A&M wins by double digits, but like that's just a big number, minus 14 and a half. I think this is going to be maybe even if they do win by double digits, they're going to win somewhere by, maybe like 10 to 12, 13 points. Um, I just think Mississippi State, man, I just think they're a different team this year, man. I think they're going to show fight. They just went up against a great offense and went toe to toe with that Tennessee offense. Um, so I think I'm just going to take Mississippi State, man. I'm going to do it. Mississippi State minus 14 and a half. I might regret talking about this game. I don't even know if it's worth any of my breath. But you know what? We're going to do it. It's such an interesting storyline and such an interesting game. Clemson versus North Carolina. I told myself that I wouldn't bet on Clemson anymore. But here we are. Clemson traveling to Chapel Hill to take on North Carolina. Clemson coming off a bye, man. 1-3 coming off a bye. Just looking absolutely abysmal this year. Looking terrible. North Carolina, I was a little wrong about them, man. I don't know if I was wrong. In my preseason, I think I ended up talking about them and saying, like, I wouldn't be surprised if North Carolina, won 10 games just because how easy their schedule was. That's basically the only reason why I thought they even had a chance of winning 10 games. But they're just not really a great football team, man. I don't even know who's starting, if it's going to be Joe Lopez or Max Johnson, but Clemson's playing bad, but Clemson has talent. They're just, for whatever reason, not putting it together. North Carolina just might genuinely just be a bad team. The roster did get overhauled in the transfer portal. It's going to be very interesting in the next couple years to see how good North Carolina can be, because Bill Belichick has not been a great a great talent recognizer. He has not been somebody who's been able to evaluate talent and pick the right guys. We're not just gonna sit here and act like Tom Brady didn't really, and I don't like the Patriots. I didn't like the Patriots, but we're not gonna act like Tom Brady didn't really carry him to 6 Super Bowls, because it's not like Bill Belichick was giving him the players to kind of have this dominant team, especially with the skill positions, man. Especially with the skill positions. I know they had a couple guys, Danny Amendola, Wes Welker. They had those guys, Gronk obviously, but like towards the end there, it just was not working. So I'm very curious to see if that translates to the college game, because, like I said, this roster is just not that good. They got absolutely blasted by UCF last week, or 2 weeks ago, and UCF I mean, I know UCF's what 4-0, 3-0, but they're just not. I don't. They're just not that great. Um, but I really hope I don't regret this, man. Please don't let me down, Clemson. Please, please don't let me down. I think this is where Clemson finally gets, you know, some bounce back to their offense. I think this is a perfect spot for Clemson coming off a bye, playing this North Carolina team. I mean, they got absolutely torched defensively by TCU. I think Clemson finally puts the pieces together. I think they finally put together a good offensive game. And I do like them to cover this spread, minus 14.5. I know that's a big number, especially with the way Clemson's been playing. But like I said, I do not really have a lot of faith in this North Carolina team. I just think Clemson has just way too much talent. And yeah, I'm gonna take Clemson minus 14.5. I like that. I'm on that. Clemson. Hope I don't regret it. I think that's all the games we'll really talk about as far as my locks. Obviously, there's not as many big games to talk about this week as there was last week. I do want to quickly just glance through the schedule, just talk about some other games that I think are going to be pretty interesting. I'm not really going to count these, against the spread or anything. Speaking of against the spread, let me go see what my record is against the spread. We took a bad hit last week. Last week was just a terrible week. So yeah, right now we are sitting at 13-17 against the spread. We went 2-6 last weekend. The only thing I hit on was Ohio State and Notre Dame. Not bad. We finally got up to 500, and then, of course, we have a terrible weekend. So right now we're sitting at 13-17. Again, not bad. We can turn it around this weekend. We can turn it around. But yeah, before I get out of here, I just want to touch up on a couple other games before we get out of here. Not even really just picking who I think is going to win. Iowa State and Cincinnati. That's a very sneaky, underrated Big 12 game. Obviously, Cincinnati, I think, is 4-1. Iowa State is undefeated. I think Iowa State gets it done, but Cincinnati, man, their quarterback, he's been balling this year. He can throw it, he can run it, and Scott Satterfield's team. I'm a Louisville guy, so we don't like Scott Satterfield over here. He's been kind of getting things going over there. They're not as bad as I thought they were going to be this year. But I do think Iowa State finds a way to pull this one out and get the win. Kentucky and Georgia, I'm not even going to try and bash Kentucky because I'm a Louisville fan. I'm going to bash them because they just suck. I think it's safe to say that Kentucky and Arkansas are going to be competing for the worst team in the SEC this year. It can't be Mississippi State anymore because they look so much more improved than Kentucky. But I mean, they're a 20-point underdog at Georgia. I mean, because it's Kentucky and because their defense is always solid and because they do usually play Georgia surprisingly pretty well, I'm not gonna say they're gonna just get crushed, but that offense is terrible. They need to get Stoops out of there. I like Georgia to win. I'm not picking spreads on these. I'm just kind of saying who I like. I like Georgia to win. I think Georgia's going to win big. Wisconsin and Michigan. Wisconsin's schedule is I feel so bad for them, bro, because they're pathetic this year, and their schedule is not giving them any favors. I think they play 6 of the top all the top 6 teams in the Big Ten. It's just absolutely brutal. They already played Alabama. Then they played Maryland, who's been sneaky good this year. They played Michigan. This is our next games. They play Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Indiana, Illinois. Ohio State, Oregon, I'd say Indiana, Illinois, then I think Michigan, or Washington. I think it's safe to say, as of right now, those are, 5, if not the 5 top teams in the Big Ten, 5 of at least the top 7 teams in the Big Ten. That's just absolutely brutal. And Wisconsin, like I said, they're not very good this year, so I kind of feel bad for them with their schedule. Luke Fickell is just not figuring it out there. I think Michigan runs all over them. This line's only been going up. I think I saw it like 13.5 or 14.5 earlier this week or earlier today, and it's at 17.5 right now. So yeah, I think Michigan gets it done. I think they roll in this game. Let's see, Kansas State and Baylor. I think Baylor finds a bounce back spot. After that tough loss they took. They lost their last game, I think, right? Um, no, they won their last game. They beat Oklahoma State. But I think Baylor gets this win. I just really haven't been seeing it with Kansas State this year. Don't really know what's going on with them. Um, Penn State's going to absolutely cream UCLA. I don't think UCLA is going to win a single game this year. Notre Dame, they're going to win against Boise State. The spread's minus 20.5. I like them to cover that. I just don't think Boise State's going to be able to stop Notre Dame's offense. Their offense in CJ Carr has just been lighting it up all year. He's been playing like a top 5 quarterback. Let's see if there's anything else. Michigan State and Nebraska. That's probably one I should have talked about. We can touch on it real quick. Nebraska is an 11.5 point favorite. We're going to add this one to our locks. And we're going to touch on it real quick. Michigan State, like I said, I've talked about them a couple times. I think they're going to be a 6-7 win team. They can be a 6-7 win team. I just don't like this for them. Nebraska, I think they got to get the offensive line figured out. That's really been their one weak point, because I know everybody likes to talk about Dylan Raiola, but he's been playing well. The plays that he wasn't really making last year, those like off-platform throws and plays, he's been doing a great job of those this year. I like Nebraska. I think they're finally starting to get a groove going on. I know they didn't play well against Michigan. They just got to be able to stop the run, and I don't think Michigan State is going to threaten them too much in the run game. So yeah, I like Nebraska in this one. I like them that's a big number, 11.5, but I think if they take care of business, I think Michigan State can hang around and keep it close, but I think as the game goes on, I think Nebraska will find a way to pull away and win this one. So I'm going to take Nebraska minus 11.5. But yeah, that is all the games we will touch on today. Week 6 is upon us. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know who you guys think the winners are going to be, the losers are going to be. Let me know what games you guys are most excited for. It's going to be a good weekend of college football, as always. Like, comment, subscribe. Enjoy this weekend of college football. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Thank you.